working from downstairs, but today I had to get a little change of scenery going. So it's
Yeah.
good to see you because it's just good to see other people.
Right. Good to see another adult face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for tuning in. You guys, I have been blown away at how many of you have engaged in these strategy sessions the past couple of weeks. I looked at
So
the one
fun.
we did like 2 weeks ago, and it has over 3,000 views between Vimeo and Facebook. I mean, there are just a lot of people tuning in. And I think that's because a lot of you are all in the same boat trying to figure out exactly what to do this summer and what summer is going to look like. And so, as long as we're all wrestling with this, we're still going to be here on Thursdays to process
Yep.
this with you and to talk it through. So, one thing I wanted to tell you really quick this afternoon, I'm going to send you an email. So, be watching for it later today. It just overviews what we are going to give you when we have those resources available. What day, Dana?
You're breaking up. I'm sorry. I couldn't. What did you say?
What day are we going to have those resources available?
Oh, sorry. May 1st.
May 1st. So we're going to give you an overview because so many of you are emailing us asking us the same questions. I even did a quick video about it yesterday. So if you want to search this page on the video I did yesterday, you can. But watch for your email and we'll tell you more about that. Today we've got a couple of fun things to talk about, and we invited a very special guest. This is a dear friend of mine. He's at an Orange church that I have worked with for a long, long time. And so I'm very excited to invite John Huber into the conversation.
Yay!
Here we go. It's counting him down. There he is.
There
Yay!
he is.
So good to be with you guys.
So John, tell them a little bit about you. Who are you?
Well, I am 5'9", blue eyes. No, not that. Okay.
This is not a dating profile. John's married,
yes,
by the way.
That's right. Hey, shout out to all my KC people. I see that in the lines. Yeah, Amy, I've been the executive family pastor here at Westside Family Church for the last 12 years. Prior to that, I was at a church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I served. I started off as the middle school pastor, and anyone in middle school ministry, you're called by God.
Bless.
If you start out in middle school, and started there, became the student pastor, then eventually became the family pastor. And so I'm married to the same woman, 19 years. She is amazing, has put up with me for a long time. With 2 kids, they are still alive. I will tell you, last Thursday, we were laying in bed, and my wife said, "Hey, I just sent you an email," and she's laying right next to me. And she said, "I said, oh, okay." She said, "You might want to read it before you go to bed." And so I get my phone and I read it, and the subject line was PTO day tomorrow. So I read the email, and she said, "Dear principal, this is to inform you that I am requesting a PTO day tomorrow and will not be available."
That's awesome.
I thought it was really awesome. And so I made a deal, not a deal, but in the midst of all of this craziness and chaos, I am going to be the new teacher on Fridays, and I'm going to give my wife the day off. So, and part of my background is in education. So I said, "Hey boys, load up." I took them to the church so she could have the day off. Nobody's been at Westside, so I've been working here because the internet is actually better here than at my house. And so school is on Fridays here at Westside for my 2 kids. So
Pierce and Blaze are available to come too, John. I mean,
I'll put the tables and the desks out in the parking lot 6 feet apart.
Totally.
Right.
Just drop them off.
Totally. I mean, it's only a flight away, right?
Right. Come on.
At this point, to have a few moments of peace and quiet, it might be worth
I understand. So,
well, today we want to talk about 2 important things. First, we're going to talk about donations, and secondly, when we finish talking about that, John, we want to hear about your plans
Sure.
for VBS and what you guys are dreaming up. But first of all, I know a lot of budgets have been cut. A lot of people are in a tight place right now. They are thinking, even if we can find a way to do this, can we afford it?
Right.
Like, where's the money going to come from? What are we going to do? And so we want to help them think through that. I know that you guys have used donations for what you do.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you've navigated that, John.
Yeah. So, every year when we're beginning to plan the process of we call it Kids Gig here at Westside, but it's VBS, and we use Orange VBS content and curriculum. So very grateful for everything that you guys do to provide just a really good platform for us to launch from. But one of the things that we've learned over the years is we have there's people in every church that wants to get behind a vision bigger than they can imagine. Okay. And that's no exception to this time that we're in. So we think of it like this. Every church has different pockets of people in terms of socioeconomic backgrounds, their availability in terms of their excess, and because there's your tithe and then there's your gifts to the church. I mean, if according to Scripture, so we never want to ask somebody for their tithe to cover VBS, although we use tithes to cover our VBS. But probably 10 years ago, I met a guy we were at a charity function, and I was sitting at his table, and I didn't even know he was a West Sider. I didn't even know he went to my church, but he's like, he introduces himself to me, and I was like, man, this guy is really, really cool. And I'm sitting at this table. I'm the guy with like absolutely no money. I'm the pastor they invited, to probably, just to say the prayer, over the time. And so, I'm thinking to myself, like, they're auctioning off, like, automobiles, all kinds of crazy stuff for our local hospital, our children's hospital. And I'm sitting there, and he starts bidding, and he bids like this crazy amount of money. And I was like, so I kind of watched that. But as we were leaving, he said, hey, I would love to have lunch with you. And I said, okay, where do you want to go? Like, I picked I was trying to think of like the most expensive, like,
Ruth's Chris. You said Ruth's Chris, right?
Yeah. We don't have that here in Kansas. So I'm trying to think what I did say. Anyhow, I meet him for lunch, and this guy, I just, you talk about it's personal. I just started listening to his story, and just getting to build that relationship. And he asked me, he said, hey, tell me about Kids Gig. I keep hearing it at church, and my wife keeps asking about it. What is that? What's it all about? And I said, well, it's VBS with a twist. We rebranded it from my old church, brought it here to Westside, and really just started kind of casting the vision of hey, here's what it's about. If you go back to the origin of VBS, it was really probably one of the greatest outreaches in the local church. And the whole idea was to reach the lost and least of these. And so, Amy, you know this about me. I love lost people. I love kids that don't know Jesus. And so I've made a commitment, as long as I'm alive, that I'm going to be passionate about reaching unchurched kids, and so I'm sharing this with him, and I'm like getting all excited. Like, I'm like, this is good stuff. I believe it. And all of a sudden I see this guy light up, and he goes, how can I be a part of it? And I was like, whoa, you could serve as a volunteer, and he's like, no. Like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, okay, well, you asked me a question. And he said, I want to be a part of it. So we left the conversation, and 2 weeks later, I received a personal check, or not a personal check. I wish it was
and I pocketed the money.
Yeah, no, I did not. No, the IRS. I got an envelope with my name on it. And so I read it, and it's this letter. And he said, John, I really enjoyed our time together, and I really enjoyed your vision for reaching unchurched kids. And I walked him through kind of our strategy. And then I pulled the check out, and he said, this is for Kids Gig. I want you to use these funds. And that was I won't tell you the amount, but I almost fell out of my chair. And every year, this guy sends me a check. And so what I realized with that is, so as we continue to build this, last year we had almost 3,000 kids and leaders and students participate. What I've learned with it is, it doesn't matter the size of your church. It doesn't, there's always somebody that wants to be a part of something bigger than they could imagine. And it may not be the involvement or the way that you or we think that it could be, and this guy. And so every year at the end of Kids Gig, I send him the video, and I send him how many kids gave their lives to Christ. I send him the information about how many unchurched kids we reached, and just to celebrate, not to, because I want him to know, listen, the seeds that you're sowing here on earth have eternal impact. And I think people, that's the other thing. When I talk to people about what we do in Kids Gig, I talk from that perspective, to think about what your gift or contribution can make beyond just, our church. And one of the things that we do, Amy, this, I'm still actually waiting for you to go with us. And Dana, maybe you could go with us instead, because Amy hasn't taken me up on it. But we do Kids Gig around the world. And so one of the things, we reach thousands and thousands of kids. We take Orange's curriculum and we take it around the world.
So, love it. I'm in.
Yeah. So
forget about Amy. I'm in.
And the thing I've learned with that is, okay, so that's a family experience. So we get moms and dads to go with their kids we have 3 locations every year. And I've learned something with that as well, that most folks want to, I've got 4 people who give to that because they want to offset the cost for a family to go on these trips, because they understand the vision. Why we do what we do is to share the gospel and build relationships.
I love it. Well, I think you said something really important, John. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I echoing, guys?
You're not echoing, but you're really scratchy.
I'm going to switch microphones.
Well, while she's doing that, I'll make the point of, there's so many, like you said, that want to do something, but they work full time, or they have other kids that they can't bring with them. So they need a place to be able to invest in the program or in the vision, in the outreach. So the donation part of things is where they can do that. And even if it's not a big check, just a bag of candy or some kind of supply or whatever it is. And if we don't make the ask, they're not going to do it because they don't know. So a lot of times we have to be the ones to make the ask.
Yeah, that's it. I loved what you said about vision. Like you painted a picture for him of what could be. And that's how he caught the vision for what he could give to you. I think that's the important piece of that, is to just paint that big picture vision so that somebody can see how they can jump in and be a part.
Yes.
And Dana, just to piggyback on what you said, having every generation be a part of it is really, really important. Nobody is too old for it.
No.
We have so many of our elderly folks that spent countless hours preparing for Kids Gig every year. And so, it may not be in monetary contribution, but it may be starting to serve. Now, I will say, what often happens is you get them serving, and all of a sudden they're like, this is unbelievable. Like, hey, I actually have some extra, cash that, and so that's the part too, where don't underestimate the influence of that connection and finding a place for them.
Yeah, exactly. Amy and I, when we used to do VBS, we had a group of a Sunday school class of older women that wanted to serve and they wanted to do something, but they didn't feel like they had a place in the classroom per se. So they were our jingle jammers, and they sat in the middle and said hi to all the kids, and they counted the offering for the day. And they loved it. We still have people come up to us and talk about it, and it's been over 10 years that those ladies that counted the money and said hi and invested in the kids that week. That is it's part of their joy. It's part of their gift.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I just noticed somebody posted that somebody donates a contribution to their VBS t-shirts. Here's what else I want to tell you is you can and pray about this. This is a spiritual movement too. There are a lot of companies in our local community that if you go to them and you personally don't do it via letter, just get to them and cast the vision. I promise you, baseball organizations. I coach baseball for my son. We do this, okay, but I've seen it done in churches too, in smaller churches, medium size. You kind of go to that local organization. Maybe it's a t-shirt printing company, and cast the vision of how you want to impact their community. And I promise you, they'll either give you a deep discount or they'll say, you know what, I don't even know anything about church, but I want to help you. And let it be, or you might find them on your doorstep on Sunday morning. So
yeah. I think the key thing is to pray about who to ask and to do a good job of following up. Like, I love that you followed up with that guy to tell him what happened afterwards. And I think that once you make that ask and you use that money, tell them what it was used for. I think that keeps them interested in coming back again to give again.
Yes.
I love that. Let me say this to you. I'm so sorry. I'm getting a lot of reverb. So my apologies if it sounds terrible, but let me say this to you. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments of what you've done to ask for donations, because I know a lot of you do that in very creative ways, and we want to learn from each other. So share with us what you're doing, because we want to hear from you. The other piece of this, John, is I want people to know what you do. Like, what are you dreaming for this summer in the midst of coronavirus, in the midst of you're probably not going to have all the kids come in your building? What are you dreaming up? Because I love what you're dreaming when you shared it with me.
Yeah. So typically we do our kids gig the first week in June. We get out in the state of Kansas. We typically get out the second week in May. And so we're scheduled every year. The first full week of June is when we do our kids gig. And we run our program Monday through Thursday, a morning session and evening session, an evening session at all of our campuses. Okay. And so this can help break down some context too, because our campuses are much smaller than our large one, but it's still, it's a small church, but same idea. And then what we do Friday, we call it a family bash. So we bring all the families together and we celebrate together. As Amy, I know you know this because I've told this to you before. There's Christmas and then there's kids gig. Okay. For me, like Christmas and kids gig, like they're almost equal. I just look forward. And so obviously this year, as we're moving through this process of thinking it's not going to happen, and as the leader, ultimately I have to make that decision. And I had to. Haven't told our church, so if anyone's watching, we're getting there. But they know. I mean, everybody understands we're in a very fluid season, and the best thing I can tell to ministry leaders is just hold it loosely. Listen, God is still at work. His Holy Spirit still reigns and rules and guides, and no weapon formed against us, not even the coronavirus, will prosper. And so we just have to believe that. And so we're moving in a place. I shared with the team last week. I said, hey, I've been praying and processing. I want to share an idea. And my team knows me long enough to know that I dream up crazy things. I lose sleep over things that and they're like, oh my goodness, where is he going to go with this? And so I pitched this idea last week, and it actually made me think about the origin of VBS. Why it was created, and it was created to reach the communities. And so we're gonna we began this process last week. We are going to move it off-site. So we had to adjust the date. So right now we've moved it to the end of summer. And so it's going to be a back-to-school experience versus end of school experience, right? And so, just modifying the timeline, which hopefully gives us a little distance, and understanding that, hey, it could be subject to change. But one of the things that most states are, I think, going to be in the same restriction is going to be in terms of how many people are actually able to assemble together. So we already know that that's going to be a restriction. It's probably going to be a restriction through the summer. Hopefully not longer than that, but who knows? And so what we've decided to do is we're going to do Kids Gig, but it's going to be Kids Gig in our communities. And we're going to make it, instead of a church event, we're going to make it a community event. Okay. And so what we've done is my team has begun the process of identifying, together we've identified 15 local parks. Okay. And so in our community, we have multiple cities that pour into our church location. Okay. So we have Lenexa, Olathe, Shawnee, Basel, Bonner. So basically, we're going to identify parks that have good green space, okay? And so we're working on that. We're connecting with the city, and we're going to have the conversation to say, hey, here's the vision. We would like to do a community outreach event starting on Sunday, August 2nd. It's going to run Sunday night. It's just going to be in the evening this year for this. Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Because Thursday teachers go back to school, and so we have about 70 teachers that actually participate as leaders. And so we thought, okay, let's figure out and look at the schedule, and make informed decisions on basically what we know. And so identify those parks, and then what we're going to do is we use CCB, our database, and we also work with Glue. And if you don't know Glue, I can get you connected with Glue. But they have this data system that will take ours, and they take the geographic location and they map it. Okay, so it identifies what families from West Side, where they live, and what neighborhoods. It's crazy. And so we were able to really then go, okay, this is a really dense population. This is a dense population. This is not so much. So we were able to pick our locations based on that. And so from there, what we'll do is we're going to go and cast the vision to our West Side families. And we're going to say, hey, listen, we need 25 to 50 families per location. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, what we want, and we're still working it out. So, the details and all that. And I will give it to anyone as soon as we finalize it all. Amy, you just let me know and I'll send it to you. You can send it to anybody. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we want you to be the owners of that location. And then we also want you to do this because that's your neighborhood. That's your community. We want you to go find one unchurched family, invite them to that location. Okay. And so basically you do the math on it. It gets pretty, now in terms of, we want to obey and submit to the authority and the regulations they put in play. So we'll have to work all that out. We'll have to work out. That's why we're making sure that all these parks have a lot of green space because we're going to need to spread these kids out. And then also we'll probably have 2 staff at every location. And we're working on in terms of, focus, which is the VBS curriculum this year. So we're still working on whether we do a trailer at every location and we pull up with a big old screen, and so we can still do it. We're just going to get creative. I mean, I told my wife I might have to take our TV out of our basement and put it in the yard. Who knows? But we're going to get creative. So it's still interactive, and I want those kids that don't know Jesus. I want them to hear the word, and so. That we're not backing down from. This coronavirus, they could do, we're going to continue to share the gospel. And then my backup plan, and Amy, I think you're going to maybe even talk about this. I haven't talked to you about it. And for my staff who's watching, I do apologize in advance that you're seeing this right now. But the backup plan would be a 3-day family kids gig experience online. So, we'd have to take the content, figure it out, and but create something that the whole family then. So then what we do is same idea though. We then tell every core family, hey, we want you to send this link. We're going to do Kids Gig, live on TV or whatever. And here are the dates, and we're going to lead up to it, so that a family can do it in their living room. But then we create some activities and all kinds of different things. But then we're inviting unchurched families to do it as well. So I don't know. We're just we're in a season where this is every family pastor's dream come true, in terms of everything has been forced to slow down. And so there's no other time that we can say, hey, don't miss this. Don't miss this holy moment. Like, people think it's chaotic. I actually think it's holy. It's a moment. The word holy means set apart. It's a moment in time for families to come back together. And I don't want any of us as the church to lose sight of that. And then I think for the non-believer, they're scratching their head right now. And when this all passes, and this is a storm that will pass, when it's all said and done, I really believe that families are going to come back to the church and go, wow, it makes a lot more sense. So
I love that. I love it.
Yes.
John,
this is definitely a story we'll be telling in the future. It's how we tell it and what we tell is going to be the issue.
Well, I think there's some people asking some really good questions. So they're like, tell us, and this might be what you're fleshing out right now.
I can't hear you guys.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well,
I can hear you, Amy.
I can hear John too.
I can hear John.
Hear us. He has muted his computer and doesn't know it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear.
Let me look. Maybe it's mine.
I mean, this is the name of the game for me today. I've had a lot of technical glitches today.
I wish I was good at reading lips.
So some people are asking where John is located. He's at Westside Family Church in right outside of Kansas City. Yep. So his team is on here and they are all commenting. Probably my guess is what John would say is that he is not sure of what, exactly what that's going to look like at the park. I will tell you, if he uses our virtual.
His teams are commenting.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Right here. They're saying they're using VBS Curriculum, small group, large group, doing it all in the park with families, kind of the same way it would run normally, but at the park in a smaller setting.
I do think it's so interesting how we are, how desperate we are to pull families back together and how this has forced that. I do love that about this weird season that we are in. It was interesting because I was watching Sissy Goff speak at something yesterday, and she was saying that the anxiety levels in children is down significantly.
I saw that too. It's
that just is really something. So I love that they're thinking about asking families to be involved. I think that's the key piece of that, is because when you have the family involved, it's easier to manage the kids. It's easier to keep them from touching other people, from doing the things that they shouldn't be doing during this season, if you make it a family event. Right. And I think it will be welcome. I love that they're thinking about it as a back to school bash type of thing, because I think, especially if we continue to social distance all summer, I think that's going to be a welcomed break for families. So I will say this: keep the great ideas coming. A couple of you have asked another good question in the comments about what if it's too much for families all at one time. And John, I'm gonna hide him from the feed. I'm gonna tell him no offense. But I think that some people I have heard are even taking this content and they're going to spread it out over several weeks. And so they might have just a fun Tuesday event, every Tuesday in July.
Right.
And have families tune in. So if you think it's too much, in one setting, then break it up. I mean, there's no rules to this. That's the beauty of this, is that we can reinvent everything. Somebody said, I know we will have our church families, but I'm not sure if we do this in homes, how we will get them. The one thing I do know is that without school in the summer, parents will be looking for things for their kids to do. Yeah, we totally agree with that. Dana and I have talked about that some too. And I think the key to what John said was that he's asking every family to invite one family that's unchurched. And I think that's the important piece, is just if everybody reaches one person, because yes, I don't think I would send my kids to just a stranger's house, but if my next door neighbor invited my kids to go with their kids, I would totally let them be a part of it. So, I think it has to be so personal right now. Oh, let's see. I think we might have gotten John back. Let's see if his sound's working now. John, are you back?
I'm back.
Yay!
Oh,
can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
John, we talked a lot about you while you were gone.
Good.
And your team, we brought them on the screen and they said all kinds of things about you. No, I'm just kidding.
They're texting me, like telling me how to fix the problem. Like, I don't know. I told you guys, I'm not good at that.
Somebody had a great idea. They said, if budgets are a concern, what about partnering with other churches in the area? Yeah. I think that's a great thing too. I think just realizing the needs of the church with a capital C, the big church, the body of Christ in your community is so important right now. And what a unique opportunity we have to just show such unity in these times. I know that John and his team are so generous with everything that they do. And I love that about their church. That's why I love to work with them. And so I would say that, I know for sure if another smaller church said, hey, we'd love to partner with you. We can't afford to do this, but can we come? I can tell you they would say, absolutely. Bring your kids and show up to the park and we'll all be a part of this. So I think there's so many things to think about, and you just have to take that box that we have all put ourselves in and tear it apart. I mean, this is the time to start from the ground up thinking, if I could have ever killed this and redone it, because I know for some of you, this has been a sacred cow and you might not love how the sacred cow mooed. So this is a great opportunity for a lot of you. I'm looking at the questions because I don't want to forget anything. John?
And I think just for a point of reference, you guys have a great job in terms of network. And so if there's a church out there saying, hey, could you tell us who the other Orange churches are around in our area? I'm sure that you could, between Dana and Amy, figure out who those churches are. And I think that's a great idea. And like Amy said, there will be no other time in history, at least in I won't tell them how old we are, Amy, because we're the same age, but at least in our lifetime have I seen a moment like this that would enable the church to really rethink, redesign, and so don't miss that. I just, that's the part for me. I look at it and I'm super excited because I think it's just a great time to look and go, okay, you know what? It's always been done like that. Now maybe it's time we could try something new.
Yeah. I have a question. I'm going to throw at both of you. What would you say to somebody if they said, hey, our budgets are frozen, we have no money, is it even worth it to gather people together? Could we try to do something with spending very little money? What would you say to them?
Yes, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, what you have if you already have the Orange VBS curriculum, you have everything you need. And especially with the materials that we're providing starting in May, with providing a virtual, because doing it where you can, they are all supplies that are at home already. So it's all things that you can do immediately and without budget.
The other side of that, Amy, is, at the end of the day, we invest in what's most important. And so this could be a great time to ask every family. There's no harm in saying, hey, it's going to cost $5 this year. Every kid, so you have to look at different ways, creative ways. And then also you think through, maybe it's you craft it out and you need a list, you have a list of supplies and you put those out for families to make a contribution. I tell people all the time, you never let money be the reason you don't do something that God has called you to do, because he's bigger than all that. That's who he is. He's the great I am. He's Jehovah Jireh. He's the Lord who provides. So listen, if God puts it on you, you don't let the devil lie to you and say, hey, you can't do it. It's just, that's the part where no way, I would not. I would say, okay, God, then you give me insight and you give me wisdom, and show me how to do that. Cause and I think you can do it without money too.
I think the cool thing in this, as much as everybody's hurting, I also feel this spirit of generosity amongst people that it's just so refreshing. Honest to goodness, yesterday, I just mentioned in front of my neighbors that I was almost out of paper towels. And I woke up to 2 jumbo rolls of paper towels on my front porch. That just those little things that people are just looking for ways to serve each other. It's just so sweet right now to feel that. And so I think we as the church to leverage that for kids, how much bigger will somebody be willing to do something for a child if you cast that vision? Again, like you said, John, just cast that vision of why the need is so great. Especially in this season, why kids and families need to have the hope of Jesus, why you want to do this. I think that's so important right now in this really difficult season, and people will dig down and find ways to make things happen with you. Link arms with them. I can tell you that John at their church, they do not do this alone. This is not something they put on just he and his team. They leverage volunteers and they lean into the people in their church and they link arms with them. They don't say, we're the staff and we're going to do it all and then we're going to hand it to you. They link arms with them. And so I just think there's I love dreaming all these ways that we can make things happen. I feel like every week we have a new idea, and John, this was a new one we haven't talked about yet. So I really, really appreciate you helping us think outside the box again of another idea. John, you have you had some documents you sent us that we're going to share with everybody. Tell us about those, and I'm going to post them on the Facebook page in the document files.
Yeah. Going back to that team idea is, if you want to do great things, you have to bring the multitude with you, because a good leader will always empower and bring people. There are a lot of things that I am fully aware that I'm not good at, and so the gifts that I do have, I want to make sure that I leverage. But then I look around and that's how we design Kids Cake too. Is we look at all of our volunteers and all the gifts that they have, and we say, hey, we want you to come because this is your ministry. You're the ministry leaders. We're just helping set the table. And so a couple things that we use as a team, and we actually these documents that you'll see, we use for everything we plan. So every major event and it's called, the first one we use is called start to finish document. And this is probably my organizational side that I just like to have. I've learned over the years, you have to have a plan or you're going to forget something along the way. And that something could be something really big. Like one year, I made a $5,000 mistake and had to answer for that. And so, it's that's a big deal.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. But really what this document does is it helps you have a starting point. And then at the end, the last, when you see this, it's 6 steps. The first one is our starting point. That's dreaming the ideas, brainstorming. That's bringing your key volunteers into the conversation. Anytime I have an idea, I don't map it out and say, okay, here you guys go. Now implement it. I always bring it. And sometimes they look at me, I know Rebecca's on here right now, and she would look at me and go, "You're crazy," or "What are you thinking?" Or she goes, I have a better idea. And I love that. So it's the idea of bringing people along, and not when you're on step 5, so, it starts with the dreaming, brainstorming. Then you move into the planning, you put it on paper. I don't know if you guys have had this, in your time where somebody says, "Hey, I have a good idea." And I always respond like this. When somebody, from the church comes to me and says, "I have a good idea." I say, "Okay, good idea, God idea." Okay. So that's where I always start my brain. And I always tell them, I said, "Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you put it in a 1-page document? Would you summarize your good idea?" And most of the time, believe it or not, do you know how many people respond after I have that conversation?
How many?
Not many.
Small percentage, because it's like, it's their idea, not a God idea. It might be a good idea. And so we've just learned as our team, because we want to empower all of our leaders. We have, an amazing team of staff and then lay volunteers. So we just say, "Hey, let's put it on paper. Let's collect your thoughts and your ideas and put it down." And then it helps people process as well. When you're able to write things out, it's one thing to say things, but it's another thing to actually type it out and process the analytical steps, what it's going to actually take. Is it even realistic, or because it could just be a dream, and then step 3 is we create an assigned task. That's where the second document that you'll see comes into play. It's a kids gig document. We put every element and every piece that needs ownership or leadership, we identify it and we put it on that paper. And then in our first meeting, we walk through every component and element, and somebody's name is assigned to be the point leader and be responsible for that element or component. And then it just helps us for the next meeting, they have to come back and give a report, and then the next meeting they have to have it's a process that takes place, and we just found that it's it keeps everybody involved, it keeps ownership, and then it helps everybody dream and think and plan together, because in those meetings too, that's where we do what we call spin. So if somebody has an idea, or if they're stuck, collectively you say, "Okay, here's this idea, or have you thought of this, or have you contacted this, or and then we have the day of the event, which that's really just the execution of everything that we dreamed about, planned, and now the day is here, or the event's here. And then the follow-up is the last thing we do is review. I've learned over the years, things that you want to become great, you have to be able to evaluate and analyze it and critique it, because then you learn. So then next time, hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. So those are the 2 documents, and then I included an actual budget that we use here at Westside. I'm responsible for creating a budget for every event. Then it has to go on to our what's called a PAT team, Pastor Advisory Team. We have 6 people on our finance side that actually approve. They'll go and look at it and go, "Okay, John's not crazy. I think we can do it." Well, yeah. Let's hold that word loose. Or ask my wife. So those documents, they're free to you. You can put your logo on the top. I made them so that you can just make them your own. And anything. And Amy, you can also give our information, anything that they questions, or I'll give anything away. I've just learned over the years, you just give it away, because here's the deal: if you keep it, you could maybe not. You could hinder the blessing for someone else, and that I don't want to have to answer that question when I get to heaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, those are so valuable. John, thank you for sharing all that. I know our friends are going to love having all of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll post those on the page. And so, yes, if you want to ask John any more questions, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with him or somebody from his team, because I know who the real smart people are behind this.
Unfortunately, one of them is moving to Atlanta.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes. Yeah, I won't mention any names, but she knows who she is. So, longtime partner.
I love her.
A good friend of mine is moving to Atlanta. I'm sure Orange is going to try to eat her up because she's one of the best leaders in the country. So
you shouldn't we? Because she's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Well,
thank you, John.
I'm going to wrap this up, but John Huber, you've been awesome. You've given us more great ideas to think on, and we will talk very soon.
All right. Love what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.